DevPro here, and we're going to be doing a Fluffal deck profile. I do like to call the deck edge imps a lot because there are a lot of edge imps in there. But without further ado, we're going to start the deck profile. This is a profile of the series we just did, and I'll put the description or the link in the description below. But here's the profile. First, we're running 3 of the Fluffal Dog. Fluffal Dog is 1700 attack point monster, and his effect says, when this card is normal or special summoned from your hand, you can add from your deck to your hand a Fluffal card. This becomes really useful because he is the Stratos of the deck, and with 1700 attack, you'd like to get his effect off as much as possible, maybe get some swings in, but try and get him just to keep searching. He can't search for himself, but that's alright because you can really just get infinite searches off because of other cards that you're running. Next card we're going to be running is 2 copies of Fluffal Owl. What Owl does is it lets you add Poly when it's normal or special summon from your hand. And it also, if you wish to pay 500 life points, you can special summon a fusion that way. You really do prefer to search for Poly because in this deck you like to be able to use your monsters twice, and so you like to be able to use him from your hand and use your normal summon on the dog instead. So being able to normal summon the dog, search cards, and then Poly into this guy just becomes a backup. That's why I'm only running 2 instead of 3. Next card we are running is 3 copies of Sheep. Sheep's effect says if you control a Fluffal, you can special summon him from your hand. And you can return 1 Fluffal monster from your field, except for himself, to your hand to special summon a different edge imp card from either your graveyard or your hand. So that's really good to get your edge imps reused, reduced, and recycled. That way your Poly becomes really useful. His stats are not very impressive. I'll see if I can get it to focus really quick. But it's 400 and 800. I couldn't get it to focus, sorry. But what it basically does is it just allows you to keep your dog getting reused and just lets you keep your plays moving forward. I'm also currently using 1 copy of Bear. I hated the card for a while, didn't think it did much for the deck, but after testing it for a while, it does a lot. It becomes a Fluffal card. You can do a little combo, which I'll explain later. And what this card just allows you to do is go very plus in the whole situation. It allows you to keep reducing and reusing things. And worst comes to worst, you can discard this card to search for a Toy Pot, which is actually something I've done a lot, and I'll try and explain in a little combo in a little minute why that's better. So what we're going to be doing next is the edge imp portion. 3 copies of Tomahawk. I do not actually own 3. It is less than $1, so I cannot buy it off of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mint, but I prefer buying cards off of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mint. Ever since they changed that rule, it made it harder to buy single commons, but when I come up with more cards that I need, I'll be buying the 3rd copy then. I just really want to get this deck profile. 1800 attack, he's got 2 effects. You can discard from your hand an edge imp card to burn your opponent 800, and you can send from your deck to the graveyard an edge imp card besides Tomahawk, and his name becomes that card. Basically, it allows me to banish him instead if I need to banish cards with the fusion, and it just allows me to get all my edge imps into play, especially because I can pull them back with Sheep. So Tomahawk, I believe, is a staple at 3 for that reason. Plus, he's a level 4, allowing me to make XYZ plays. I'm also running 3 copies of Chain, second best edge imp monster card, because when this card goes to the graveyard from the field or your hand, you can add from your deck to your hand and Fright Fur card. And that becomes really helpful if you're running cards like the Fright Fur Fluffoid. Like this guy, I'm no longer running him because I just couldn't find use for him. And they're just similar cards, though. It allows you to search for the monsters and any spells or traps that say Fright Fur in it. The other effect is if he attacks, you can search for another chain, which actually does help for deck thinning, and I do surprisingly get that off a lot, especially if I can clean the field up and then attack a couple times with this card. But the main thing is it allows you to fuse into your Sheep, which is your main card. 2 Scissors, only card, or one of the only cards I've been considering going up to 3 for, because what Sawbrace or Scissors does is it just allows you to make your best fusions, and it comes back and you discard this card a lot off of Toy Pot and such, and it just becomes a really useful card for that matter. So that is that card. Well, the last edge imp I'm running is 1 Saw. I hate Saw in the sense of it does nothing in your hand. This is one of the #1 cards that I'll discard with Tomahawk for the 800, just because I like adding this card in the graveyard as a banish option. But you don't want this card in your hand because his effect really does suck. His original effect was summon, discard a Fluffal, draw 2 cards. But they added in that you had to send the Fluffal, draw 2 cards, and then stack a card from your top or bottom. Which is okay in situations because of Toy Pot, but it just becomes very inconsistent for that very reason, though. The only non-Fluffal or edge imp monster I'm running is 1 Junk Synchron. As you saw, it comes useful because Sheep and Owl are both level 2s. Really searchable, and being able to pull out synchros of 5, 6, and 7, depending on the other cards you have on the field, is just really, really helpful. So That is why I choose to run him. Moving on to spells, I'm currently running 3 copies of Toy Pot or Toy Vendor. Being able to discard them for their own effects is really good. Being able to like discard him for this one, or discard the bear to search for a vendor to discard a vendor. Also being able to discard other edge imp cards, or being able to stack cards with scissors just makes that card really live. It also actually gives you the effect if you discard chain with him, because you do want to be able to get the effect of chain to search for the Fright for Fusion, but that is why I'm currently playing this card at 3. Next we are playing 3 copies of Fright for Fusion. This card is Miracle Fusion for Fluffals. It lets you banish from your graveyard the cards to be able to summon your fusions, and it's just really nice for that reason. You can also banish from your field, and it just allows you to make your plays really well. You can poly with 4 to make Wolf with 4, and then you can banish from 4 to make Tiger with 4 and pop the entire field, or things of the sort. Next we're running 2 Polymerization to complement the 3 copies of Fright for Fusion. Being able to fuse them from your hand and field without having to banish them yet allows you to make for huge pushes and for game a lot. 2 space and 1 double cyclone. I was running 3 space and 0 of these and 2 and 2 and stuff of the sort because of different reasons, but this card, I really like it in the sense of it can pop your own toy pot and pop your opponent's card, and it just really allows you to do that. Your opponent targets this card. If you set this in toy pot, it basically guarantees you're going to be destroying an opponent's backyard, because even if they space this card, you can flip it up, target your card, target their space, and still get your search off, which is something that's really nice for that. The last spells we're running, Lower Darkness. You don't need all of your edge imps, so you have a lot of them for reasons, and being able to banish it and draw 2 more cards is just insane for the deck. Lets you get your new cards and deck thin at the same time, which is really good. Raigeki, because blowing up your opponent's field just allows you to make an easier OTK, which is really nice. And 1 the 7th one, because being able to draw this card just wins games a lot. Forces your opponent to instantly waste outs like he used with the Compulse on it. And being able to just Edge Imp Scissors to stack it if you ever open it with it bad. And with how easy it is to put Edge Imp Scissors in the graveyard, you can just basically get this card off whenever you need it to, and it just is really helpful for that sense. My trap lineup has really changed a lot. I was trying for a while the card Fluffal Crane. I really disliked the card after a while because I actually never resolved it. I think I resolved it 1 time in all the time that I owned the card in the deck. But here's the trap cards I'm running. So I'm running 2 Mirror Force because I like to protect my cards. But unlike Fluffal Crane, if this card resolves, it's so much better because I did not leave very many Fluffals on the field that Crane made a problem. This card allows me to protect whatever I have and just blow up all my opponent's monsters. Next card I'm running is actually 2 Trap Stun. Because it's an OTK kind of deck, it allows me to do some pushes and have less fear and get away from that back row that's scary. We're also running 1 Compulse. I prefer Compulse to a lot of cards. I could be running Warning or Bottomless or something else here, but I really prefer Compulse. 1 copy of Ring of Destruction. This card really does win games because it burns your opponent down to enough life points that Wolf can kill with only 2 or 3 material or 2 or 3 uses. And it also gets rid of problematic cards in the middle of combos, so using the Ring of Destruction really helps for that. And the last card is actually Vanity's Emptiness. I put this card in recently because it's really easy to turn this card off if you need to. What this card really does, though, is it allows you to sit there, get your little +1s and 2s off for a while, flip up this card, stop your opponent's big push, flip up a Trap Stun, and win. And it really just does set the deck into a winning advantage. I normally don't like the card, but it really does help in this deck. And we're going to move on to the extra deck now. 2 Sheep. One of the only cards I would consider running 3 of, but its effect can only be used once per turn. It has Armides, or Armades. If this card attacked or is attacked, you can stop your opponent from using any card effects. Also, if he dies by card or battle effect, battle or card effect, he comes back with 800 more attack, which is cool and bad in the terms of Ragnazero can hurt him then, but it doesn't really matter because he gets back really strong, and it's just really good for that matter. We have 2 copies of Wolf. This card is your OTK potential. You can banish cards from your graveyard just to pull out a monster that can attack. He attacks as many times as you have material, or you used for fusion cards that you used to fuse with it. So the minimum's 2, but the maximum's like infinite. Next we're running 1 Bear. His effect's good enough to warrant running 1 Bear. Sorry that my mat slid a little bit. But his effect is good enough that allows you to warrant using him. His attack's not the best, but because you can have these other guys out that actually boost his attack, it makes him worth it. We're also running one Leo just because that is the reason why we are running the Saw. Leo has that decent of an effect that it can pop cards and do a lot of damage in one turn, as well as it gets rid of that problematic card. Being able to use this card and an opponent and your Ring of Destruction and stuff just to do a lot of effect damage before attacking for game is actually surprisingly really helpful. What we're going to be doing is the two fillers. This card is the Fright for Tiger. I'll try to put the effect on the screen over here, so like here's the white background if I can put it on there. But what this effect does is it just allows him to do extra damage if he all Fright for monsters gain attack equal to 300 for each Fright for on the field. He can destroy cards up to the amount of him that is summoned. So if I summon him with 4 materials, then I can pop 4 cards. His base attack's 19, and he's just really strong in that sense. You can only control one of him, though. But this card is what makes the deck really, really good. We're getting it as a promo soon. I'll be purchasing him then, but I just really wanted to get this profile out. So, that is that card. That is all the fusions that I'm running. I don't need to run very many more. I really am content with this lineup, but as soon as the new Saber Tiger comes out, I'll probably be fitting 1 or 2 in here just because that card does help me get around problematic situations. For Synchros, I am running 1 Armades because this card is a free card that I can pull out using Junk Synchron. I really do like free cards, and being able to get him out is really strong. Goyo, I love the idea of taking your opponent's monster. That's why I'm running Bear. That's why I'm running him. This card just allows me to take my opponent's monster and get easy buffs out and just get really nice, strong things. So, making him is really easy. I can summon him or summon the Edge Imp guy, Scissors, by bouncing a card, and then I can pull him out with the Junk Synchron, get a free monster out to fuse with, and pull out of him. And this card, which is the hardest one to summon, if I already have a level 4 out, I can normal summon the Synchron guy, pull back a card if I wish to, but I can really just make Black Rose to wipe the field. We're moving on to XYZs. So, first things first, I am running the 7th one, so I run Shark Knight and Dark Knight. I could be running any of the other cards, but these two are the ones I choose because I can make Shark if I need to, and it'll make a dead card, but I have a lot of ways to discard, as you saw. So, being able to use this is helpful. Abyss Dweller, which I've actually never once made, so I would probably turn Abyss Dweller easily into a Cowboy because I feel like a Cowboy would be better in most situations. But the last card I'm also running is a Castel, because Castel just gets around problems and it's really, really helpful in that situation. So that's the extra deck. That is the profile. I'm going to show you really quickly the one combo I mentioned. All you need for this combo to really work is a dog and a toy pot in your hand. So what you would normally do is summon dog. So let's say we have any generic Edge Imp, let's say Edge Imp Chain, okay? What you would do is you'd summon dog and you'd search for something like, let's say, a sheep. And this is a silly combo that's actually pretty decent, but search for sheep, activate toy pot, you can discard the chain, draw a card. If it happens to be a Fluffal, summon it, but the main thing is you get the chains affecting grave, summon sheep, and pull back the chain. So, I mean, you got this guy in your hand, chain search, and maybe something off of Toybot. The other combo you can do is assuming instead of having chain, you have, let's say, a scissors, okay? You can summon dog, search for bear, discard bear, to set a toy pot from your deck. This allows you to deck thin a little bit more as well. So flip up the toy pot, discard the toy pot, searches for a Fluffal card, so you're going to add the sheep, and you can just special the sheep, add this back to search for this. So I know the other one had chain, but what this card allows you to do is deck thin your card, one card, and also still have the dog. So it does the very similar thing, but this card summons from your hand. Every play that this deck makes is actually very skillful based because you have to be able to know which cards to do and which things to go. The main thing about this loop is it put a bear in the graveyard and it deck thinned this card out of your graveyard. And so being able to do that just makes it so you have more cards to banish with your Fright for a Fusion. That card is one of the most important cards in the deck, and I really do think this deck's pretty decent. It's not the worst deck, but you guys saw the plays in the deck, or in the duels, and you saw what this deck can do if it's played correctly. So that was the Fluffal deck profile. I really hope that you did enjoy. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and all that, and as always, have a wonderful day. Yeah.
Oh, you said yeah. Sorry.